This is a very old and broken stained glass window that came out of Mount Olive Church in Chicago. This thing is really badly damaged and it's about to fall apart. But that's not what I want to show you today. You'll see this in a future video. Today is going to be part 2 of my antique desk restoration. Last week was part 1, and if you missed it, I'll have a link up here and also in the video description. So I split that video into 2 parts because it was such a big project and I wanted to get into some more detail of my refinishing techniques, such as where I'm going to start today, with details on replacing badly damaged edge veneer using this edge banding. I removed all of the old veneer. I sanded it smooth and cleaned off all the dust. There's basically 2 types of edge banding. Pre-glued that you have to iron on, or one that you have to glue on yourself. The iron-on veneer definitely has a convenience advantage. It's much easier to use. But I picked up this veneer, this glue-on veneer, at an estate sale for almost nothing. And it closely matches the project that I'm working on, so this is what I'm going with. Now, my opinion is that gluing veneer down is stronger than iron-on. Now, I've got no proof of this, but I know I'm right. I also realized that using the iron-on veneer may be your only option in some cases. I cut a piece of veneer a couple inches longer than I need. This veneer is also wider than my 3/4 inch piece of wood. All this is going to get trimmed down after the glue dries. I remember being taught in high school woodshop class to use contact cement when gluing down veneer, but I've had some bad results doing it this way. Look, this is wood, this is wood. The obvious choice to me is wood glue, but it does take longer to do it this way, and you need to use a piece of wood and clamps to hold down the veneer while it's drying. It's very important to remove all of the excess glue that squeezes out. A wet paintbrush works great for this. Rinse and repeat until all the glue is cleaned up. As you can see, gluing on veneer is a lot more difficult and cumbersome than using the iron-on veneer. When I was doing some research on gluing the edge banding, I found out that Titebond actually makes a special formulated glue just for edge banding veneers. Why? Because sometimes these glues will have a tendency to bleed through and leaving a little bit of shiny glue on the surface. That would be horrible if you're trying to finish this thing. Now, I didn't have a problem with this. This stuff is thick enough, but some veneers are so thin that it would probably benefit you if you got that special glue. I didn't use it. I didn't need it, but just thought I'd mention it. The next day I can carefully cut around the edges. I sand all the excess. You can also use a file for this. They even have special cutters that do the same job. I don't have one, so sandpaper it is. I'm in the home stretch. I've repaired all the broken parts on the desk. I've stripped off 90% of the stain and varnish that was on here. Now what I'm going to do is sand the whole desk down one more time using some fine grit sandpaper. This is 240 grit. Along the way, I'll see if there's any more holes to patch. And then this thing is going to be ready to apply the stain, which is the part of the job that I love the most. When this thing gets transformed into something spectacular. Before staining, I like to blow off all the dust using an air compressor. You can also use a clean rag. For the stain, I mix up a concoction of Jacobean stain and some green paint. Both are oil-based. After experimenting with various amounts of each, I arrived at the color that the customer wanted. I'm adding the green paint to the stain in order to mask or obscure so much of the red that comes out in the red mahogany wood. You can apply stain using either a brush or a rag. The rag is going to give you a slightly lighter shade since you're wiping off all the stain completely. If you use a brush, you have a tendency to leave a little bit more stain on the wood. I finished staining the desk and I let it dry overnight. This thing looks really good. In fact, my grandson was in here earlier today. He looks at the desk and he says, "That looks amazing. Did you paint it?" But it really does look that good. And now it's time to apply the finish. And for that, I'm going to use this Minwax polyurethane. This is a warm semi-gloss sheen, which basically it's a toned down version of a semi-gloss, not so shiny. And I'll be applying that using a nice, good quality bristle brush like this one here from Rolling Dog. But before I apply the polyurethane, I like to apply a seal coat or a base coat of shellac. A base coat can help you avoid those nasty bubbles that sometimes surface when you use polyurethane. If you don't have any shellac and you don't want to buy it, you can make your own base coat using a wipe-on poly. All that is basically you take some polyurethane and thin it out with some paint thinner. The only thing I don't like about shellac is that it dries so fast. The shellac can be thinned out using a little denatured alcohol, which will help to extend the drying time slightly. Now for the polyurethane. You always want to stir it unless it's a gloss sheen. Do you know why? In order to get the semi-gloss and satin sheens, they add flatteners to the polyurethane, which sink to the bottom. If you don't stir it, all you're going to get is a glossy finish, and you'll probably be wondering why. I like to pour off the amount of poly that I think I'm going to need into a separate container so that I don't contaminate the can. During really hot weather, the poly can dry faster than you might want. In this case, sometimes I add a squirt of paint thinner to the polyurethane. When you're brushing the poly on vertical surfaces, you want your brush to have a little bit less poly on it. Otherwise, it's going to have a tendency to drip. As it dries, I often go back to inspect it and brush out any dripping that I might see. Of course, I'm going to give this desk at least 3 coats of poly, sanding lightly in between each coat, but not after the final coat. This is all of the hardware that I removed from the desk. I lightly buffed every part using a brass wire wheel, shining them to perfection. I even soaked the screws in OSPO, which is a rust treatment. Then, of course, a wax and lube, using my Slip and Shine product to clean and protect. I use this stuff for everything, which, by the way, you can purchase your own can for $9 on BigBearNaturals.com. And while you're there, check out some other Alley Pick merch, as well as some great natural products, handmade soaps, and shampoos. Now all the hardware looks fantastic. On the bottom of the desk, instead of leaving it bare wood like most people would do, I like it to look nice. I could apply a coat of polyurethane, but I find that a quicker and easier method is to use a wax formulation, like my Slip and Shine product. This gives it a nice look and a protective coat of wax. I just wipe it on generously and leave it alone. It'll soak in and dry on its own. This desk was purchased from Beyond Grandma's House antique store in Chicago by a designer for a law firm in downtown Chicago. I returned the desk to the store where it will soon be delivered to its new home. Now I can't be sure, but my guess is that this looks better today than when it was new, and that's what I go for. This is work I can be proud of.